Imagine waking up one morning feeling completely disconnected from yourself, your life, and everyone around you. You still exist, but inside something feels broken. That's why the Metamorphosis feels less like fiction and more like modern depression. When people first read the Metamorphosis, they focus on the strange part, Gregor Samsa turning into a giant insect. But Kafka's story was never truly about monsters. It was about emotional isolation, the terrifying feeling of becoming mentally invisible while the world keeps moving around you. And honestly, that sounds a lot like depression today. Gregor wakes up transformed into something horrifying, but deep inside, he's still human. He still thinks, still feels, still wants connection. The tragedy is that nobody around him can understand his suffering, and this is exactly how many people experience depression. From the outside, someone may look lazy, distant, or emotionally numb, but internally they are fighting battles nobody can see. Modern depression often doesn't look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like losing motivation, emotional exhaustion, isolation, feeling disconnected from life, struggling to care about things you once loved. And the scariest part, people around you slowly stop understanding, just like Gregor's family. At first, they feel shocked, then uncomfortable, then annoyed. Eventually, Gregor becomes less of a person and more of a burden. Kafka understood something deeply painful about human nature. Society struggles to value people who cannot function normally. Today's world makes this even worse. Modern culture constantly tells people to stay productive, stay positive, keep moving, keep smiling, but depression doesn't work like that. Sometimes your mind feels trapped inside itself, and nobody notices because the world only rewards performance. Kafka's writing feels terrifyingly modern because he understands connection, identity, purpose, hope, not through violence, but through loneliness. And loneliness is one of the biggest silent epidemics today. Millions of people are surrounded by others yet still feel emotionally alone. There is another disturbing detail in Kafka's story. Gregor's greatest fear isn't he becoming an insect. It is becoming useless. He worries about work, money, responsibility, even while mentally collapsing. That feels painfully modern. Today, many people continue working while emotionally destroyed inside, because society often treats mental health as weakness instead of suffering. Kafka never called it depression, but he perfectly captured its emotional reality, feeling trapped inside your own mind, while slowly disappearing from the world around you. That is why the Metamorphosis still feels so powerful more than 100 years later. Because the monster in the story was never Gregor's body. It was isolation. Ending line. Maybe Kafka's real message was this: the worst transformation is not becoming a monster, but feeling invisible while still human. Subscribe for more dark psychology and Kafka-inspired videos.
Every morning, millions of people wake up exhausted. Not because they didn't sleep enough, but because they're tired of living the same day over and over again. Wake up, go to work, come home tired, scroll endlessly, sleep, repeat. And strangely, a writer from more than 100 years ago understood this perfectly. His name was Franz Kafka. Franz Kafka wrote stories filled with anxiety, pressure, isolation, and people trapped inside systems they couldn't escape. But one story feels terrifyingly modern: the Metamorphosis. The story begins with a man named Gregor Samsa waking up transformed into a giant insect. But here's the disturbing part. Gregor doesn't panic because he became a monster. His first fear is being late for work. Think about that. Even after losing his humanity, he still felt pressure to be productive. That's exactly what modern burnout feels like. People today are emotionally exhausted, not because they're weak, but because modern life never truly stops. Notifications, emails, deadlines, pressure to succeed, pressure to stay relevant, pressure to keep going even when your mind is completely drained. Kafka understood something terrifying. When people live only to function, they slowly lose themselves. And maybe that's why his writing feels more relevant today than ever before. Because modern burnout isn't just stress. It's waking up every day feeling disconnected from your own life, trapped inside routines you never chose, forced to survive instead of actually live. Kafka wrote this before social media, before hustle culture, before corporate life became normal. Yet somehow, he predicted all of it. Maybe the real monster in Kafka's stories was never the creature. Maybe it was the system that made people forget they were human. And maybe that system still exists today. So the next time you feel exhausted for no reason, remember this: Kafka understood you.
Imagine waking up one day and realizing machines understand your value better than humans do. Your job, your identity, even your thoughts reduced to data. Sounds like artificial intelligence. Franz Kafka warned us about this feeling more than 100 years ago. Franz Kafka never saw artificial intelligence. He never used the internet. He never experienced social media, algorithms, or automation. And yet his writings feel terrifyingly accurate in today's AI-driven world. Because Kafka didn't write about technology. He wrote about something deeper. The fear of becoming invisible inside a system too powerful to understand. Today, millions of people fear AI for one reason, not because machines are evil but because humans are starting to feel replaceable. And that feeling is pure Kafka. In Kafka's novel The Trial, the main character is suddenly trapped inside a system he cannot understand. Nobody explains the rules. Nobody tells him why he's being judged. The system simply exists cold, confusing, emotionless. Now think about modern AI. Algorithms decide what you watch, what you buy, what job you get, sometimes even who gets attention online. Most people don't understand how these systems work, but they still control their lives. That is what makes modern technology feel Kafkaesque, a world where invisible systems quietly shape human existence. Then there is Kafka's most famous work, The Metamorphosis. Gregor Samsa wakes up, transformed into something no longer useful to society. And the terrifying part, people stop seeing him as human. Today, many workers secretly fear the same thing. What happens if AI becomes faster than us, smarter than us, cheaper than us? In a world obsessed with productivity, human worth can start feeling conditional. And Kafka understood this psychological horror long before computers existed. But Kafka's real prediction wasn't about machines. It was about anxiety. Modern anxiety is not just fear of technology. It has fear of losing purpose, losing identity, becoming irrelevant, being trapped inside systems nobody controls. Kafka's characters constantly search for meaning in worlds that refuse to explain themselves. And honestly, that sounds a lot like the internet today. Infinite information, infinite noise, infinite algorithms, but very little certainty. What makes Kafka timeless is this: he understood that modern life would become emotionally disconnected. Not through violence, but through systems, bureaucracy, automation, corporate structures, algorithms. The more advanced society becomes, the smaller the individual begins to feel. And that may become the biggest system humanity has ever created. Maybe that is why Kafka still feels so relevant in 2026. Because deep down people are not afraid that AI will destroy humanity overnight. They are afraid humanity will slowly disappear inside it. Quietly, emotionlessly, like a Kafka novel. Kafka never predicted artificial intelligence. He predicted the feeling of living under it. What if the biggest thing stopping your future is your current identity? Not your enemies, not your past, not even your fear, but the version of you that still wants comfort. Franz Kafka once wrote, characters trapped in invisible prisons. Not physical prisons, psychological ones. And maybe that is why his stories still feel terrifying today. Because deep down, many people don't actually want transformation. They want improvement without death. But real change is violent. The old version of you must disappear, or nothing changes. Every day, people wake up with the same habits, same thoughts, same excuses. I'll start tomorrow. I am waiting for motivation. I am not ready yet. But tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next year. And slowly a person becomes a prisoner of repetition. Kafka understood this perfectly. In the Metamorphosis, Gregor Samsa wakes up transformed into a horrifying insect. But here is the disturbing part. The real horror wasn't the transformation. It was how quickly everyone accepted it. His family adjusted. His life collapsed. And Gregor slowly stopped fighting. That is what happens in real life too. People adapt to misery. A toxic routine becomes normal. Emotional numbness becomes personality. Burnout becomes identity. And after enough time you stop remembering who you could have been. Part 2. Your identity is addicted to comfort. The human brain loves familiarity. Even painful familiarity feels safer than uncertain growth. That is why people stay in dead relationships, stay in draining jobs, stay in routines they secretly hate. Because changing your life means killing the identity attached to it. An identity fights back. The moment you try to evolve, your mind creates doubt, your habits pull you backward, your environment resists you, people call you different because you are. Growth always looks strange to people committed to staying the same. Kafka's characters constantly faced invisible systems controlling them. In the trial, the main character is arrested without understanding why. That is modern life. Many people feel guilty, anxious, exhausted without understanding the system trapping them. They keep obeying routines that are destroying them. And eventually they mistake survival for living. Part 3. Why transformation feels like death. Becoming someone new is painful because your old self interprets change as danger. Think about it. The moment you start improving, you lose old habits, old friends feel distant, old coping mechanisms disappear, old excuses stop working. That feels like death, because innate way it is. Most people want a new life while protecting the mindset that created the old one. Impossible. You cannot become powerful with a weak identity. You cannot become disciplined while worshipping comfort. You cannot evolve while emotionally attached to your past self. The old version must collapse first. And that process is ugly. Lonely nights, confusion, self-doubt, silence. Nobody talks enough about that part. Transformation is not aesthetic. It is psychological warfare. Part 4. Kafka's dark truth about human nature. Kafka believed modern life slowly disconnects people from themselves. Not instantly. Quietly. A little more exhaustion every day, a little less emotion every year. Until one morning you barely recognize yourself. That is why his stories feel timeless. Because today's world rewards distraction. People scroll for hours to avoid thinking. Consume content to avoid silence. Stay busy to avoid confronting themselves. But silence reveals uncomfortable truths like, you've outgrown your current life, your habits are destroying your future, you are becoming someone you never wanted to be, and the scariest part, nobody is coming to save you. Not motivation, not luck, not someday. Only decision. Part 5. Kill the old version. The strongest people aren't fearless. They are willing to let their old identity die. That means leaving comfort behind, accepting temporary loneliness, becoming misunderstood, starting before feeling ready, because every new version of you requires sacrifice. A disciplined body requires killing laziness. A peaceful mind requires killing chores. A meaningful life requires killing distraction. You don't find yourself. You build yourself. Painfully, repeatedly, intentionally, and maybe that is the hidden message inside Kafka's work. The real transformation isn't physical. It is internal. The terrifying part is becoming different. The terrifying part is realizing you stayed the same for too long.